Ladies and gentlemen, I think Trump might return to the White House sooner than 2024. How? How? Now, I'm not a QAnon conspiracy theorist, but I will, when I see something, I will tell you about it. So this is what I've found. For those of you that don't know, it is expected that Donald Trump will run again in 2024, and I think he could definitely win from it, assuming there's no cheating. Now, there was a plan that was floated back in January to get him to run a lot sooner than 2024, in 2022, next year, in the midterm elections. For those of you that don't know, the midterm elections are where Congress go up for elections, and the House and the Senate also go up for grabs to see who gets the majority. And it's expected that the Republicans will probably win the House and maybe the Senate, depending on how crazy the Democrats go. Now, back in January this year, there was an idea put forward by this guy called Rogan O'Handley. You can find him on Instagram under the name DC Drano. And Rogan put this idea forward, which I covered on the show back in January this year on the Ark, when it was still on. And this is pretty much how it went. He said, okay, this is a crazy idea, but hear me out. Trump runs for Congress in Florida in 2022. There's a red wave and Republicans control the House. Trump is then elected Speaker of the House. Boom. Now he is in control of a branch of the federal government again and can impeach Kamala Harris. The best part is he can still run in 2024. Now, all of that is true. He can impeach Kamala Harris, and he can also impeach President Biden. However, you need a majority in the House to impeach. So assuming the Republicans get a majority, which it seems like they will, if they want to remove the president or the vice president from office, what needs to happen is the Senate needs a 2/3 majority. So I don't see that happening in my lifetime. I don't think that'll ever happen. But if they could convince some Democrats to also remove the sitting president, maybe. Now, as a general plan, it could work. It could work. And in fact, DC Drano was talking with a guy called Steve Bannon, who's got a very interesting, to say the least, history. And this is basically what they were saying on January 21st, a day after the inauguration of Joe Biden.
You be named and elected speaker afterwards without being a member of Congress, because that's actually the reality. But let's say he does. Let's say he runs for this district. There are going to be 2 new districts carved up in Florida. I think they're going to be heavily Republican districts, right? He nationalizes the campaign against Nancy Pelosi, takes the House, and immediately impeaches Joe Biden. You want unity? We'll show you unity. Impeaches Joe Biden for everything that Joe Biden has done in his corrupt family of being compromised by the Chinese Communist Party, and everything else is going to happen in the next 2 years with their lawlessness and what they're going to do. And I'm quoting the Attorney General of the great state of Texas, Ken Paxton, in his tweet yesterday, or his statement yesterday. And then, after we do the impeachment of Biden in 100 days, I think President Trump steps down. McCarthy becomes the Speaker of the House. President Trump announces immediately his 2024 campaign. It's a continuity. That's what I like. So, Rogan, how did you come up with this idea? He could be named and elected Speaker.
So, look, I mean, it could work. It could work. But as I said, it'd be very unlikely to actually remove. You can impeach a president just like Trump was impeached twice, but you can't remove a sitting president while he's still in office without 2/3 of the Senate to remove him. So, look, I don't see that happening. Now, Trump could still run in the House and still remain relevant. That is the difference, though. He could run in the House and remain relevant. And he could also, because if Trump were to run, a whole bunch of people would vote for the Republicans in the midterm elections. You know, one of the problems that the Republicans had in 2018 in the midterm elections when Trump wasn't running was there was no Trump bump. So what ended up happening was they lost the House, but they just retained the Senate. So that's if Trump were to run in 2022 in the midterms and become Speaker of the House, that would provide a good sort of fight back, because sometimes people do need to see that fight. And it'd be very interesting to see what would happen and what the dynamic would be like. If he did that, he'd instantly save CNN and MSNBC and all the mainstream media who are having failing viewership right now. Now, if that was all there was to it, I wouldn't be talking to you guys about this. But there is more. There is more. What happened was, in the last few days, there have been articles that have been coming out about Trump possibly running. Now, this is in February. Steve Bannon pitches Boston Republicans on a plan to make Donald Trump the House Speaker. He says, we'll have a sweeping victory in 2022. So that's in February. Now, June 5th, 2 days ago, American time, 1 day ago, Trump ponders run for Congress and House Speaker in 2022. That's the New York Post. Something could happen. This is Newsweek. Trump suggests he may run for House in 2022 and become Speaker. Very interesting. That's from James Lemon. Former President Trump suggests he would consider running for a House seat in 2022 in a bid to become Speaker of the House and launch an impeachment investigation against President Biden. Wouldn't that be interesting? So, according to Steve Bannon from that video, he was basically saying the idea would be, run Trump in one of these strongly Republican Florida districts, make Trump Speaker of the House once they win the House, impeach Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden using their privileges as congressmen. And the moment that they achieve their goal, Donald Trump pulls out as a congressman and he announces his run for the presidency. Now, I'm not sure how all of that would work out, in terms of actually being able to remove the president or the vice president, because it might get really partisan and you might not be able to get any Democrats on board to impeach the two of them. But it all depends on how the turnout is for the midterm elections. If the Americans are sick of not having any gas, if they're sick of, being laughed at on the international stage because their president keeps falling downstairs, if they're sick of their freedoms being stripped away, and if they're sick of the government just inflating the national debt and the dollar by printing all this money, then now's the time. Now is the time. Can they really wait 4 years? I don't know. Now, in terms of healing the country, this is not going to heal the country, most likely. If the country wants this, then they can vote for it in 2022. But there are significant risks. When Trump runs, it does also give the Democrats a benefit as well, because he enrages people a lot, and that's a good thing for your base, but it's also a good thing for the other base. Even now, you look at how the Republicans are going, and they're doing quite well with Trump out of the picture, but they're not getting anything done. That's the problem. So look, that's the story. I'm going to keep it short there, but I think that there's something here. And if Donald Trump runs and wins, and being the third in line as Speaker of the House, if he were to become Vice President or President, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. And it might shift the course of the future significantly, rather than waiting 2 more years. But we'll see what happens. Now that I've got you here, I just want to briefly say that, as many of you know, obviously the Ark has not been on for the last 3 months. It's because I've got a new show coming under a new brand, and you guys are going to love it. It's going to have a whole bunch of brand new guests from around Australia, and it's going to look to bridge the gap between the left and the right, but also to shine a light on libertarian issues that we're talking about in Australia specifically. But I will always have a special segment or two every week on American politics. You know how much I love it. I want to thank all my subscribers. I want to thank you very much for what you're doing for me, what you're helping me do on and off camera, especially with my help with Craig Kelly, who's fighting the good fight. And I want to make sure that you remember that if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And I just really want to reaffirm that. My next video is going to be quite interesting. It's about Reset Australia. It is a very troubling organisation, which I think you're going to be very intrigued by. But stay tuned.